So the educational research topic that I chose was student self-efficacy. When I first started this process, I was interested in what factors affect student self-efficacy, but then there was so much research on both sides of what factors affect it and what things are affected by student self-efficacy that I wanted to sort of delve into both sides of the topic. And so the question that I'm presenting is which factors are connected to student self-efficacy so that I can explore both sides of the topic. So first of all, what is self-efficacy? Bandura is the guru in this area, and he defines it as one's belief about capabilities to perform and have an influence over something in their lives. It could be academics, it could be your personal life. How do you feel about your impact on that area in your life? So there's lots of good research on which factors affect student self-efficacy. Sort of look for commonalities between the research here. So one example of a quantitative research I found is about feedback and the type of feedback we give students. It turns out the more that they are informed of a correct response, the more efficacious they are about the work that they're doing at the time. Some qualitative research that I found on this discussed 9 factors that influence self-efficacy. They highlighted some specific factors though, and that includes understanding the content, drive, and motivations in courses, and also computing abilities, specifically in math and science, and being able to use the tools that are necessary to complete the task. There are also external factors I found in a different research study that was still qualitative. Basically, students were influenced by external factors, specifically practice at home. This was specific to students in an orchestra, and so that makes sense. The more they practiced at home, the better they felt about how they would do in class and perform, and so their efficacy was increased. There are also some mixed method studies on this topic. Debriefing was really interesting. This study was about gaming and teaching kids how to play a game, basically. And they looked at different debriefing models and how they debriefed students. And some groups were debriefed as a group, and some students were debriefed individually. Some were debriefed in the middle of the game and throughout the game, and others were debriefed at the end of the game, or the instruction, as we can apply it to education. And it turned out the group debriefing and the in-game, or during the instruction, debriefing allowed students to be the most efficacious because they were able to change the way that they were performing the tasks during the instruction, instead of waiting till they failed and then finding out the correct way to do it. So that was kind of cool. Environmental perceptions also was a really neat study. It was a mixed methods study because students basically with positive perceptions about the school were more efficacious and performed better in general. So that goes along with school spirit and just having a positive outlook on education in general. So other studies looked at efficacy from a different view, and we're looking at how does self-efficacy influence students and basically student performance. And so GPA, interestingly, was not significantly affected by self-efficacy, so a kid could be efficacious or not and still have the same GPA. But final exam scores were affected by efficacy, so it's probably just a numerical thing in terms of being able to statistically impact a number so great as a GPA. Let's see, in science it was very interesting. Science course grades specifically were affected by efficacious students. So if a kid was efficacious, they had great science grades, which is really cool. Qualitative study having to do with this is coping as a first-year college student. Very interesting. Students that are self-efficacious cope better during their first year of college in terms of being away from home and dealing with college life and getting used to it. Also, another qualitative study discussed final exam scores in Math 1, and efficacious students were more likely to perform better on this exam in particular. And then finally, a mixed method study that I looked at talked about math literacy, and self-efficacy did influence math literacy, but not as much as previously predicted. Another caveat to the study is they looked at motivation, and motivation was a pretty big factor in determining math literacy skills. So some common features of methodologies within these research articles include interviews. Every single one of these research articles did interviews, whether it was quantitative or qualitative. It's just that the quantitative interviews connected their results with Likert scales so that they could have numerical values for the answers in the interviews, which I thought was really interesting. Surveys, kind of the same thing. Lots of different student surveys. Several of these studies use Bandura's theories as a framework, obviously because of the efficacy piece, and many use grounded theory as a methodology to look at the data and do analysis. Implications for educators. There are lots of implications for educators, lots of subject specific, really with math and science, which was awesome. So in terms of efficacy affecting exams and things like that. Also, if we know that student efficacy is vital, and we can see that with this research that I presented with math literacy, exam scores, and science success, and all those things. What we really need to look at as educators are ways to increase student efficacy. So from this research, we can see that debriefing methods, feedback methods, environmental perceptions all influence self-efficacy, and if we can find the way to do these properly through reading this research, we could increase efficacy for students, and then therefore increase the things that we want to increase, such as exam scores and science success and math literacy. So it's very cool. I think there are lots of implications for educators, and I think we need to continue to look at student self-efficacy, not just teacher self-efficacy in education and as educational leaders. Here are my references. There are quite a few of them, and I think that there is still an open area for continuing this research with other subjects. Maybe some ELA areas or social studies areas as well would be pretty interesting. And thank you for your time.